In this episode, we're going to take a look at a voice amplifier, a device that amplifies your voice and makes it louder. This is a presentation tool. If you're going to do a presentation to a large audience, 500 people in a big room, well, you're going to need a sound reinforcement system so everybody can hear you. If you're doing a presentation to just a couple of people in a small space, well, they can hear you just fine without any extra amplification. But then there's this whole middle ground where you sure could use a little boost to the power of your voice so that everybody, even those in the back of the room, can hear you clearly. But the situation isn't really conducive to carrying out a big, heavy, cumbersome PA system. For example, maybe you're a sales professional and you need to do a sales presentation to a dozen or 15 people in a medium-sized room. Maybe you're talking to a handful of people down in a manufacturing shop floor environment, and it's not a lot of people and not really a whole lot of space, but it's a noisy environment that you need to overcome with your voice. Or perhaps you're a school teacher and you're talking to a classroom of 30 students all day, every day. And if you have to raise your voice and really project every day, that would be super tiring. And so with a voice amplifier, you could speak in your normal conversational tone and still have all of the students hear clearly what you have to say. So we're going to take a look today at the WinBridge S96 voice amplifier. And WinBridge reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in doing a review and sharing this unit with you. So I'd like to throw out a thanks to WinBridge for providing this unit for this review. I'd also like to commend them on their courage for putting it into my hands because they don't know what I'm going to say. So let's take a look at the WinBridge S96 battery-operated voice amplifier system. And we'll take a look at it. I'll show you the features, and then we'll demonstrate the operation, and I'll give you some of my thoughts as to where I think this device fits in and what I think of its performance. So let's do an unboxing and see what we got. The S96 voice amplifier includes two wireless rechargeable headband microphones. And to recharge these mics, there's a USB Type-C connector at the top, and on the bottom side there's a push button to turn the microphone on and off. On the side there is a series of LEDs which indicate the state of battery charge, and the batteries in these microphones should be good for all day long operation on a single charge. The microphones are pretty directional, and so because of that I would recommend when you put the mic on, you get the microphone pretty close to your mouth. If it's hanging out here, it'll still work fine, but it works better if you get it close. Something I find curious is that the WinBridge logo on the outside of the microphone is upside down if I wear it like this. Perhaps they're intending for people to wear the unit in this state, where the headband is kind of around the backside of your head and rests on top of your ears. I don't know. Either way, it works just fine. One of the cool features of these microphones, I think, is that they don't appear to be standard Bluetooth microphones. There's no pairing procedure that you need to go through in order to connect the microphone to the amplifier unit. They just automatically see each other and hook up instantly. So all you need to do is turn on the amplifier, turn on the microphones, and a moment later everything just connects and works. So that's pretty neat. There's a lot less hassle factor right there, or no concerns about a device getting unpaired and then you have to go through some cumbersome pairing procedure. They just connect and they work, and they seem to work pretty well. Here's the S96 amplifier unit. As you can see, it's really small, compact, portable, easy to carry around. It only weighs just a little bit more than a pound. And to make it even easier to carry around, they have included a relatively nice carry strap that you can clip onto the unit if you wanted to just toss it on your shoulder. The unit has a 25-watt power amplifier module inside of it, according to the specs, and a pretty significant battery rated at over 8,000 milliamp hours, which is more than enough power to run this device for all day long, 10 to 12 hours. And it's a rechargeable battery, of course, and it is charged with a USB-C power connector on this side of the panel. This is the same connector that's used on the microphones that are included, so the charger that's included will charge either the microphones or this device. Also on this side panel are a couple other connectors, such as a 3.5 millimeter audio input connector. So you could take an audio source and put it into that connector and use this as a speaker amplifier. Then on top of that, there's a large USB connector, which is used to connect to a memory stick. And this device can play audio files that are stored on the memory stick. It can also record to the memory stick if you want to, so you can record your presentations. Those recordings come out as 96 kilobit MP3 files. Moving to the front of the device, we see that most of the front panel is occupied by the speaker. It's not an extremely large speaker because it's not an extremely large device, but we're just trying to reproduce vocal audio, so we don't need extremely deep bass. And so I think that'll work all right. Up here we have a LED display which tells you all about the operating status. It will indicate things such as what the volume level is set to, where the volume control is set, whether or not the microphones are connected to this device. And if they're not, you just need to turn them on and they automatically connect. And so there's two indications for mic 1 and mic 2. Lets you know if they're connected. If you're in USB mode, where you're looking at the files that are on a USB stick, if you're in a record mode where you're recording to the USB stick, if you're in Bluetooth mode, you can use this as a Bluetooth receiver that will receive audio from your phone or some other Bluetooth device and work as a powered speaker for that. Now, in any of those modes where you're importing another audio signal from Bluetooth or through one of these connectors on the sides, the microphones continue to work. So as long as the microphones themselves are turned on, they'll come through this device, and those sounds will be blended with whatever other sounds are coming in. So if you wanted to, you could play music through this device and turn the microphone on and sing along. Moving to the top panel, we have a series of controls here, and this was super easy to operate. I didn't need to read the operator's manual. This is the volume control and the power switch. To turn the power on, just depress this for a second or so and the device powers up. To turn it off, just depress it again and it powers down. Twist it for volume, and this control will turn all the way around and more and keep going. It's a software type volume control. There's no hard stops in it. The other buttons along the top are used for audio playback and mode. So this one here is labeled M, and it's the mode button, and it determines which input source you wish to use. So it will switch between this being a Bluetooth receiver and being connected to a Bluetooth device that's playing audio, or it can switch to one of these inputs on the side. The button in the middle is a pause button, and so if you push that, any audio playback gets paused and the signals from the microphones get muted. So this stops and mutes everything and puts the unit into a standby mode. Tap it again to continue on. This button and this button right here are used for skipping tracks forward or backwards. So if, for example, I was connected to my phone and I was playing music from my phone through this device, I could press these buttons to skip to the previous or the next song. The button on the end here is labeled R for record, and if you press that, it will record the presentation onto a USB memory stick. The recording comes out at 96 kilobits in MP3 format. This was one thing that I found just a little bit confusing in the operator's guide. When you put a USB stick into the device, the front panel here will indicate USB. A USB device has been inserted. And then that indication will go away after a few seconds and the device will just go back to its previous state. And so I inserted a USB stick. It said USB. I waited for a moment for that to settle down, and then I tried to record. Didn't work. What I discovered is that when you insert a USB stick and the USB indication is on display, during those first few seconds, and there's plenty of time to react, but during that first few seconds while it's showing USB, at that point you just tap the record button, and then you'll see the display change to an elapsed time counter of minutes and seconds, and it begins elapsing time, and there's an indication on the display saying that the unit is in record mode, and it records to the memory stick. To stop the recording, you just push that R button one more time and the recording stops and the files get saved. That's a neat feature. As for the rest of the device, the build quality, the fit and finish, looks pretty nice. It seems well done. There's no other controls, it's just clean surface on all the other sides. The back appears to be held in by 4 screws, but I haven't investigated the insides. So, yeah, it seems to be pretty neat, and it certainly is small and compact. So I think we should power it up, see how well it works. Let's turn on the S96 and give it a try. To turn it on, we just depress the volume control button for a second or two, and it will boot up. And it says hi on the front panel display, so that's polite. Now I'm going to insert a USB memory stick so I can record the session that we do, and then we can listen to it afterwards to see how good the recording is. To do that, I'm going to insert the stick, and when I see USB appear on the display, I will just quick tap the record button to begin the recording mode. And now I see that the display is counting time. So I know that it's recording. You can see the little light on the USB stick blinking, showing that it's saving data to it. Now all I need to do is take the microphone and turn it on, and it will connect automatically to the S96. There we go. Slip that on, and we have a working audio amplifier. Actually doesn't sound entirely bad. It sounds pretty clear and present. I could see how this could help project your voice to the very back of the room. Now, there are some things that I immediately notice, however, being kind of an audio guy. One of them is that there's gating happening. So if I talk super quietly, it cuts out. And that's probably a good thing. It reduces the amount of noise and possibly feedback. And so far, I'm not getting any feedback with this unit sitting right next to me right here. So that's pretty impressive, actually. But if I talk super quietly, if I go really quiet, you can see that the device is not gating. It's not opening the gate. I can talk really quiet and it doesn't trigger it. But if I start speaking in my normal voice, it comes in and it works just fine. Now, the other thing that I'm noticing, which is just a teeny bit disconcerting to me, is that there's a time delay. From the time I speak until it comes out of that speaker, there is a small time delay. I'm guessing a few milliseconds, perhaps. It's enough to kind of throw me just a little bit, but that's evidently an artifact of the digital processing, and digital processing takes a little bit of time. Now, it's not such a deal that I think it would really be terribly distracting for most people. But being a sound guy, audiophile guy, I notice these things. The other thing that I notice is that it is relatively loud, but it isn't overpowering. You're not going to break glassware and shake walls with this device, but you wouldn't expect to with such a small speaker. And the device is rated for 25 watts of power. And subjectively, that doesn't seem like a very big 25 watts to me. So I would have expected more output. But I'm not disappointed in the unit. I think that for its intended purpose, for small group communication, to give you a little bit better coverage in the backside of the room or in a noisy environment, I think this will work pretty well. And you can get a pretty good sense as to the audio quality of it, I think. Maybe I should move the microphone a little bit closer to this speaker so that you can hear the output even more clearly. Move you over here. Well, if I just do something like that, I think you'll probably get a more clear pickup as to what my voice actually sounds like coming through the S96. So, it's not a big giant PA system that is super hi-fi, but for its intended purpose, for being able to project your voice to a little bit larger audience, I think this might be a great tool in a lot of situations. So let's do a roast and toast. I'll start with a roast. I'm going to let you know those things where I feel like this product is not a good fit or could have some improvements. Now, this is a pretty small unit. They claim that it has 25 watts of power, and that could be true. But even so, it's a pretty small unit with a small speaker, and so there are certain applications where this is just not going to be enough. For doing a church service, for example, to the congregation, I think you're going to need more PA. for covering an auditorium-sized event, this is not it. If you're in a bar or restaurant and you want to call out trivia games or bingo, I think you're going to need more of a system than one of these. But the S96 is not intended to be used in those situations, so you just have to understand the intended use and the limitations of the amount of power that you have. There's just one small speaker here, so we have to be realistic in its application. This unit is made in China, and it seems like it's a good unit, nicely done. And many of the pieces of equipment that I see coming from China have operator's guides that are evidently written in Chinese and translated over to English. And that's the case with this unit. Now, I think they've done a pretty good job of it, but not perfect. For example, the top button key labeled M on this device, which changes the input selection, the mode button. In the manual is referred to as a model button. For some reason they just decided to add an L to it. Okay. Now, I don't see any sort of errors or strangeness on the labeling of the product at all, so that's nice. But the manual could be slightly better. And one thing that could definitely be improved with the operator's guide is a better explanation as to how to enter record mode on the S96. That was not entirely obvious to me, and it wasn't well documented. The other thing is these headsets, they work well. They're great. And they have a WinBridge logo on the side. Now, maybe they intend for me to wear this in a way that seems non-obvious to me, but I would normally put a headset on thusly, like so. And if I do that, the logo is upside down. So did WinBridge just put the logo on these headsets upside down? Or am I using it incorrectly? Minor cosmetic issue. The headsets work just perfectly fine, so I've got no real issue with it. It's just a curiosity going, you got your logo on upside down there. The sound quality of this device is not hi-fi. I mean, go figure. It's a little tiny speaker. It's one speaker. It's not going to rock the house. You're not going to shake the glassware and pound the party with one of these. And so the sound quality isn't super hi-fi. It's not really intended to be, but you have to have reasonable expectations. Now, when I paired my phone with it via Bluetooth and played music through the device, I was actually pleasantly surprised by how good the sound quality was compared to my expectations. But it's not a hi-fi stereo system. It's not a big concert sound system by any means. It's geared more towards vocal intelligibility than really amazing sound quality. It has good sound quality, but you're not going to be blown away by it. I would say that the sound quality of that device is in the category of what I would expect from a high-quality cell phone call connection without noise or static or dropouts or anything like that. Just a good sounding phone connection is about the ballpark of the sound quality that you're going to experience with that device. This device has some time delay. So when you speak into the microphone, there is a brief fraction of a second before the sound actually comes out of the speaker. And it's a very short time delay. It's the kind of thing that as an audiophile, as an audio engineer, I put the headset on and I immediately noticed it. I thought, whoa, we got a little bit of delay dialed up here, just a touch. When I handed the unit over to my wife, who does a lot of professional presentations in her work, she put the headset on and talked into it for a little bit, and she said, hey, that's pretty cool. I like that. It works well, doesn't it? And I go, yeah. So, what do you think of that time delay? And she was saying, time delay? What time delay? I said, well, when you speak, there's a little time delay. And then she spoke into it and goes, oh yeah, I guess a little bit. I never even noticed it. Well, as an audio guy, I notice these things, and if you're not an audio person, well, maybe you wouldn't even notice it at all. But it's not significant. It's not enough of a time delay that it causes me to stutter when speaking or anything like that. It's just a little bit of an observation. Now, this may actually turn out to be a feature. The time delay is undoubtedly an artifact of the digital processing. When you digitally process audio, it takes a little bit of time for that computer stuff to do what it's got to do. So I don't think it was designed into the box. I think it's just an artifact of the design. But I think it might actually be of a benefit in a lot of applications, because sound takes a moment to move through space. That's why when you go to a big empty room and you clap your hands or yell in there, you hear an echo, because that's the time that it takes the sound to go across the room, hit the wall, and come back to you. And it's a noticeable amount of time, like fractions of a second. And so if you're talking to an audience in a larger room, the people in the back of the room hear your voice just a little fraction of a second later than the people up in the front of the room do, because it takes your voice a little bit of time to reach the way back into the back of the room. And so if I was to use this device in a larger room with like 30 people or something, and instead of putting the device right up by where I'm speaking, I move it forward into the room 10 or 15 feet back. So this is like halfway back in the room. That way, when I speak at the front of the room, the people in the first couple rows up by me can hear me just fine, up with my normal natural voice. But then when you get towards the middle back of the room, this device starts covering that end of the room. And it takes my voice just a fraction of a second to move across the room and meet up with this unit, and then it talks. So if I move this unit about halfway to the back of the room, that little time delay that's in this unit will actually help synchronize the sounds coming from this unit and my voice up at the front. So it actually does a better job of blending with my natural voice that's coming in the room and adding a little boost. So I could sell that as actually being a little bit of a feature. But I don't mean to belabor this issue. It's a very minor deal, that there's just a little tiny bit of time delay to be aware of. I don't think it impacts usability at all. Another thing is there's gating. So when you speak into the microphone, the unit instantly turns on and passes your voice through. If you stop speaking in the microphone, the device mutes everything and it's silent coming through. The gating action is really well done. You don't hear it clicking on and off or anything really distracting like that. It works pretty transparently. I would say that 9 out of 10 people using this device would be totally unaware that it's there, but like I said, I'm an audio guy. I catch these things. And this is something I immediately noticed as well, which is as soon as I stop talking, the unit goes to pure silence. This is probably actually a feature, but it can be a little teeny bit disconcerting to some people having the unit just be silent and not hearing any background noise coming through it. It's useful for preventing feedback from happening, so that's a plus. And you don't want a bunch of hiss and noise coming through the unit when it's not doing its job. So I think it's a plus, but it's just a curious little phenomena that I noticed going, this unit, it's got some gating. And then the worst thing with this unit, if I had to pick a worst thing, is that getting into record mode is a little bit tricky. You put a USB stick into the device and you press the record button to record your presentation, and I think that is a great feature. It records to a 96 kilobit MP3 file, which isn't super hi-fi, but it's good, and it certainly is a great documentation of the presentation that you did. When you do recording, do keep in mind that it's only going to record what the microphone can hear. And these microphones are pretty directional, and they don't hear anything outside of the room. They just hear your voice. So if you're doing a presentation and you record it, you're going to get a good recording of everything you say. But you're not going to get on that recording, I don't think, anything else that's happening in the room. So if people are raising their hands and asking questions or, putting in other side points, that's not going to get onto the recording very well. Now, of course, the unit does come with 2 headsets. And so if the other people who are involved in your discussion have the other headset on and you're using both mics, well, of course, both of those mics will get recorded well. To do the recording operation, you need to have the device turned on. You put a USB memory stick into the side of it, right here. And as soon as you put your USB memory stick in, on the front panel up here, it's going to say USB. Once it says USB, you need to do a quick press on the record button. Not a hold, but just a quick tap. And that quick tap has to occur while the device says USB. If you wait a second or two too long, the USB indicator will go away and it will just basically ignore the USB stick in there and just kind of go back to its normal operation. And at that point, you can't engage record. Now, if you put your USB stick in, you tap record, and you get into record mode, you're going to start seeing the time elapse on this little display. It'll count off minutes and seconds of recording time. You can then, again, tap the record button to stop the recording, and you can, at that point, tap the record button again to restart the recording, and it all works just fine. But getting the unit initially into record mode is a bit of an exercise of careful timing, where you got to get that stick pushed in, see USB, and then at the right moment, press record. And once you understand the operation, and once you understand the timing required, not a big deal. It's pretty easy. But it wasn't well documented in the book. And so I spent an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out why the record function wasn't working. Everything else was working fine, but I was, for a moment, thinking, I wonder if this device is defective because I can't get it to record. Well, once I figured out the secret to the timing, it was all fine. So that is something WinBridge really should update in their documentation. And now a toast to the S96. These are some of the things that I like about this unit. I can see this unit being really effective in a lot of applications. For example, for classroom teachers, for tour guides, for sales presentations, or maybe for things like communicating with a group of people on a manufacturing shop floor when you huddle around a line, but it's a noisy environment and a little bit of vocal boost would be effective. So in those situations, I can see this being really a good tool. It's super easy to use and portable, small, convenient, not very expensive. So I think that there's a lot of places where this could actually be a very effective, handy tool. When I first saw this, I was skeptical, thinking, that's pretty small. Can this really do anything useful? But the more I work with it, the more I play around with it, I think that it's pretty neat. I actually like the device quite a bit. Something I'm impressed by is these microphones in that unit have surprisingly good feedback rejection. I can get quite close to the unit with this microphone without having any feedback issues where it wants to squeal and go out of control. Now, any sound system, no matter how good or how expensive or how powerful, is going to have feedback issues if there is the ability for the microphone to hear its speaker and there's positive gain. That's just physics. And yeah, if I take this microphone and I shove it right into the S96 amplifier, it will squeal. But in my practical use of this unit, I have had no problems with feedback. And I've had no problems with feedback in situations with this where I thought, I think I'm going to get some feedback doing this. But I haven't. So that's pretty impressive. It says that the pattern control of these microphones is very tight. And so because of that, when you put the microphone on, you want to get that mic element pretty close to your mouth so that it picks you up tightly, and it makes a big difference. The S96 can operate as a Bluetooth speaker, which you can pair your phone with or some other Bluetooth device. And I was pleasantly surprised by how good it sounded. Now again, it's not going to rock the party. You're not going to shake the house with it. It's not designed to be a real hi-fi system. But for a little bit of background music, it sounds decent. And I was impressed by how good the sound quality was in that situation. Like I say, it's not a hi-fi system, but it also doesn't sound really offensive or irritating or anything like that. It's good. So used as a extension speaker to a phone, I think there's some real utility for that in some cases. Another thing that's great about the S96 is that it has a large battery inside of it. A full battery charge on this unit and on the headsets will allow you to run this unit all day long with a single charge. You get 10 or 12 hours worth of operating time on a full battery charge in this unit, and a little less time on the headsets, but still you should be able to use this all day long on a single battery charge. And finally, my communications with WinBridge, who provided this unit for our review, have been very friendly and they have been very responsive. And so I have the impression that as a customer, if you had any sort of customer support issue that needed to be addressed with this unit, I think the company would stand behind it. I think they would do what they could do to make it right for you. So overall, I like it. Yeah, I acknowledge that there are some places where a little tiny amplifier box like this just wouldn't be enough. But in those situations where a small amplifier would just help boost your voice up so you can be heard clearly at the back of the room, like a classroom teacher situation, for example, I could really see this as being a helpful tool. And I especially love the ability to record your session on it automatically, because I think that would be a great record of what actually happened. So overall, yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's a pretty neat device. And if you have a need for something like this, I invite you to check down below this video where I have purchase links, which will take you over to Amazon and you can learn more about this product or other WinBridge amplifier products. So once again, I'd like to say thanks to WinBridge for providing this unit for our review today. And I'd like to say thank you to all of you for hanging out and watching the video. I hope you come back and watch more. If you like this kind of content, I hope you make the choice to subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, well, you could thumb it up if you wanted to. If you think it added awesome value, you can give me a super thanks. But thanks once again for coming along and taking a look at the WinBridge S96 with me. And I hope to catch you all soon on another upcoming video.